picture on the wall.
This event lecture will be recorded, streamed, and a podcast. Video recordings will only capture the speaker, and the students will not be visible. And your voice, however, may be captured if you have questions. So if you don't like your voice to be captured, you can either don't ask question or write your question. So
So you're one of those voice scrambling things they have on online.
we need a device to maybe to convert your voice to something else. And then you can write down a question, pass it to either to me or just directly to Terrace. You don't want your voice to be heard too. So don't give to Terrace, either Nadine or me, so I can read the question. Otherwise, I think we're fine, right? Are we okay? Yeah, so that's the formality we have to do. This semester, we're going to have 3 workshops. The first one is this one, what to expect as a junior faculty member. So, I assume they will tell you all those interesting stories. But I do like, my junior faculty, although it's a long time ago, but it's still very interesting too. And then next one, the graduate school Pat Hayes. You probably all know her. Anytime you want to do a form, she is the person is in charge of it. So I invited her to here talk about all the forms and also the dissertation formatting issue. Now, the graduate school require everyone to submit an electronic dissertation. No hard copy will be accepted. So she will talk about that. That will be the next one. And then April, Loretta and Jessica will talk about teaching tips, how to prepare a syllabus, and also the different teaching philosophies, whatever you probably have to prepare for your career too. So that's basically our plan for this one. Congratulations for this year's student organization, and Nick is the current president, and then Renee and Gigi are the members, right? Anyone else I missed? Adriana. Yeah, forgot about Adriana. And Adriana, of course, we want to thank her, and also you guys did last year too for the excellent work. Yeah. So I just saw Nick's email about canceling the workshop because they're so busy this semester. Not only you, I feel so busy too. Every day there's so many emails. Now I put Evelyn in this one. I don't have to moderate her because she has so many emails. So you probably got all those candidates too. Again, with all the presentations that the DPC discussed last time, is the workshop is a highly recommended one for everyone because that's designed purely for the PhD students. And V2A, of course, the DMI is organizing that. If you have time, you can definitely come in. For all other presentations or other things, it's your choice, whatever you like to do. But of course, it's always good to have more informal communication, not just formal communication too. That's why we invite faculty members every time there too, because it's not just what they'll talk to you about, but also the way to know and to engage with faculty member about their research, their teaching, even their life might be always good to you too. So that's basically the idea. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time. Thank you so much for the workshop.
Okay, we have Lavere.
Is what your tenure track job looks like, right? You've talked about getting one, I think, in another workshop. So our tenure track contracts at SOAS, it's 40% teaching, 40% research, and 20% service. So basically your job has 3 major components: the 40% split between teaching and research, and the 20% service. And we can discuss about how that actually works in practice if we wish. But that's the contract terms here. Keep watching. And the other thing, next, just a broad thing to introduce, is that so in your 40% contract terms at SOAS, that means we teach 2 a year, so 2 classes a semester. And what this means, I did obviously small informal survey of everybody else I know and what they're teaching and those sorts of things. And other schools, some people have 3 3s, some people have 3 4s. There are people with 4 4s at universities, so 4 courses a semester, and these are tenure track faculty. And then at some research one schools, people get 2-1 loads, but those are extraordinarily rare. 2-1s are, just so you know. So they're, at SOAS we're on the lighter end now. We used to be heavier. 3-2 was, I believe, the original load. Yeah. So just other things, just when you're negotiating and thinking about your load as a junior faculty member, one of the things that I did, and a little bit about teaching and why I kind of even start with teaching, is that I actually had, and this becomes important later when we talk about balance and other things, is I actually had a significant amount of teaching experience when I came. I taught 6 or more years as a teaching assistant, and 6 or more years as a part-time or full-time adjunct. So I came with a lot of teaching background, which was very helpful in the first year because, or actually this is the first year, in case any of you don't know. This is the middle of my first year here as a tenure track faculty. And so one of the things to expect when you're getting the job is that people ask you at the interview, what out of their catalog can you teach? And this is super important because they're hiring you to fill gaps, right? Usually, which was my case too. So I knew when I got the job that I had already been teaching 110, so that would probably continue, and I was being hired to do the law, the legal aspects of information products and services class, because it's in my field of expertise. And then, you know, another thing that we need to do for tenure purposes is develop new courses. So you're not just filling gaps or, you know, doing things that are already established, but a big part of the job too is then establishing new courses to bring in your areas of expertise into the curriculum in some ways. And, you know, depending on the school that you're at, some places you get shared materials. So you come and people will say, oh, you know, like when I came here and was teaching 110, Michael Zimmer was like, here you go, change what you'd like, but look at it and use. And now since then, I've done this with Nick. Other times, like at my old job, people thought that their syllabi were protected treasures, that there was basically no record of them and they wouldn't share. So you were, even if you were teaching something that had been, and I did say that on camera, didn't I? Things that had been taught for, you know, 20 years, you were it was very tough to find a syllabus to jump off of. So sometimes, even if you're teaching something that is a core, know that you may actually not get a whole lot of help. You may get a great deal of help.
Isn't there kind of a flip side to that? I mean, if you don't have a lot of help, sometimes you also have a lot of autonomy. So if you're inclined to want to teach your class in your way versus having somebody hand you something is also a way for them to say, this is exactly what I want you to teach, so do it this way. And sometimes it isn't the way you'd want to do it.
It's interesting because I actually like both ways. I mean, I really like being able to deconstruct something or just take it and create it from the bottom up. But the one thing I have learned when doing that is at my old position, when I was an adjunct, I taught a core class and nobody taught it the same way. So when you were teaching upper electives, there was no common base of knowledge. And that ran into a problem because I'd say something and half the students would say, what? And then you'd have to say, so that was a problem to, you know, obviously negotiate and think about with colleagues, but it's just something that was interesting to me is how different people are with materials when you come to a job.
Are you allowed to ask something like that at an interview or if you get to the negotiating stage, or is that just something you have to go on your own? Like, would you say, well, are there people who will share with me, or is that going too far, kind of?
I didn't ask because I had so much experience I wasn't. Do you guys have thoughts? I mean, it wasn't something I would have even thought to ask because I wasn't. I mean,
It seems a little tacky. I mean, if you're a PhD,
you should be able to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was just it's a nice bonus when you join a new job and someone says, "Here you go,"
Yeah.
and you say, "Thank you," because you're trying to figure out what all, you know. So that was really nice. And one of the things I've noticed, because there are so few tenure track faculty positions now, that they're really trying to get faculty members to do like 6 things in one body, and you have to be really, really careful. Like they want you to know something about ethnography in Africa and film production in the U.S. and something else. And there's no way that one human, they've lost 3 faculty members, they get 1 line, and they want somebody to fill that gap and be very wary of those or joint appointments because we're going to end up basically being somewhat schizophrenic, trying to stop the gaps and get up to date in the fields. And I did actually see the African ethnography in the film, whatever, it was just bizarre. But they wanted this out of the same person, so that's something else to.
On the dam.
It's like Terrence is almost graduating now, so you're going to the professional division, right, for the tenure. So then you can have more freedom. So when I first come here, I was assigned to the courses I teach, and later I have a choice of courses I want to teach. So that's also gradually.
Yeah, and in my case too, because our bachelor's program here is expanding rapidly. So one of the things I should be able to get to do from what I've heard is start doing some additional courses in the bachelor's program. And, you know, stuff that I used to teach and that relates to my research area. So that'll be nice from one of my other research areas, so that'll be nice too. So it also helps to know a little bit about the student body, whether their numbers are up or down, those kinds of things. Because then you know, I mean, if numbers are tanking, you know you're probably not going to be developing new courses. But if numbers are going up, then there's a possibility there, because like us, we need courses for a rapidly expanding undergrad population. So, you good? Okay. So just other next, obviously, right, 40% more of our job is research. And at SOAS for tenure, I have been told, correct me if I'm wrong, that we should have about approximately 1.5 peer-reviewed articles a year, which of course means 2 1 year and 1 other years. Or really, honestly, I'd like mostly 2 every year, I think, to work towards tenure. And like this maps onto the other institutions, so the inverse proportionality with the teaching load, the more you teach, the less you research. So other institutions, for example, if you have a 2-1 teaching load, right, 3 courses a year, you will be expected to publish at least 4 peer-reviewed articles a year because your primary job is research. So you'll have a 4-ish load. And some schools actually require a book from an academic press for tenure, depending on what field you end up in and where you are. So some places will ask you for a book for tenure purposes. So we, like with teaching, we're in the middle of the road here, middle of the road for peer-reviewed. And then those heavy teaching schools, junior colleges, the 4-year programs where you're teaching 8 courses a year, you know, I have friends who basically, if they get an article, a peer-reviewed article before tenure, they'll get tenure. You know, like 1 article, whereas we need 10 or more, 14-ish. Yeah, so all of that, depending on what your appointment is, influences what your actual work life is going to look like. So they go up and they go, and then, you know, I have friends at places like Cornell and Rutgers, and those are 4 at least a year. Go ahead, Ed.
How does journal impact factor play into that? About which journals are actually being published in?
I've been asked by several members of the ECO, they've suggested to me that I should actually also, because I'm an interdisciplinarian, publish in comm journals, in communication journals, and publish in information, LAS journals. So there's also some negotiation there about, you know, your field and where you are, because, like I said, there's, you know, different places where you can get hired. So there's that to be accounted for as well, because I do comm specific regulation stuff. So having some things in those journals is important too, because it means my research is getting recognized by my home discipline, not just my migrant discipline, I guess. So that matters as well.
Yeah, just keep in
A
mind.
mentor, a senior faculty mentor, so that you can go and ask and you can talk to other people. And I found that so far to be useful, just figuring out, you know, where to put things. And, you know, because I have different stuff that, like Jace's never gonna look at. We talked about this in research stream this morning. Like, it's just not gonna happen there. But there are other places that are hopefully quite as respectable. So you also have to look at the piece of research that you're doing and make sure, because it's better that it gets published in a relevant journal to it than languishing on the desk of the JASIS editor who may not accept it. Because for tenure purposes, you need to get the stuff out. So that's very pragmatic of me, but I think it's important as well.
Yeah, and we have a lot of.
I think I only have one more, which is next. Which kind of fun. It's kind of funny that service at 20% is the longest slide I made, which may be indicative of something.
Actually, before you talk about, can I talk about one thing
Oh,
too?
sure.
For the research part, it's not just number of articles, also the research agenda. Because you could have 10, 20 articles, but they are A here, Y there, W there. So you don't have a coherent research agenda, that's also a problem. You know, you have to realize how do you justify, again, I think Terence said, justification. How do I say all those research projects I did, they are all related to each other. They are all under a big theme of mine. So that's important, because we have people in the past might say they have a lot of publication, but they don't have a coherent research agenda. How do you put those things together? That's important too. Because in one professional division, you might ask you, okay, you said further research will be on this, what's your further research? Nothing, because you only did this one, the superficial, then move to another superficial one. So that's something keep in mind too, create your own research agenda, that's something very important for the research. The other thing quickly is grant. Grant writing, again, different requirement for different institution. For some institution, grant writing is, get a grant is essential for your tenure. But in some institution, submitting granting is essential. So here at UWM, it's submitting, because if you go to professional division, they might say, have you submitted grant? Even though you didn't get it, but have you tried? Have you submitted before? Why you didn't submit? At different level. That's something they care about. So submission is, so again, the requirement might be different for that, in that case too. So normally, research paper, grant, comparatively conference is less important, but in computer science they might, because some of the conference have high rejection rate for CIGR, for other ones. So again, they're on different area. In our area, conference can be considered, but they're not as important as journal articles. So again, that's something also considered too.
And just, oh, no worries, and just another note, like this morning, we're having a research stream with Hope Olson workshop, so that the newest juniors can talk about and think about what that agenda looks like, how you're identifying what is the focus, base focus of all your research and tying it together, so that number one, you don't end up in that field with a bunch of different things. So that's been really nice, and like I said, we have mentorship here, which is, I find also really supportive, because there are other institutions where you just arrive and no one talks to you, and you stay in your little office, and you do your job as best as you think you interpret it. So there's a wide variety of support, I think, in the beginning too. So that's something that's been really nice for me, is just being able to, like drop in on Iris at 5 o'clock on Friday and ask about certain things. So that's been wonderful as well. So service, you good? Okay. So other requirement for us, 20%, and I understand that right now I'm getting kind of a light service load, and this will increase as we go along. Right now, I'm not on a department committee, but I am on a department committee, I'm not on a university committee. And then next year, I believe I may end up with a university committee as well. So you end up serving, we have a variety of different things like programmatic at each of the bachelor's, master's, PhD. We have committees, I don't even know all of our committees, but committees, because we're shared governance here, like we're the ones who make things happen. So you are actively involved as a faculty member in moving your department forward. I serve right now in the undergrad planning committee, so we look at new syllabi, courses, and issues within the undergrad program, and then there are committees that do that at the other levels. Other things, so university committees, again, shared governance model, so faculty have to get together and make decisions. So we have everything from the university senate to, their ethics review boards, and I'm sure a million and one space committee, and a million things in between. And then another layer of service is professional service. So not just institutional service, but what do you do in associations, which I haven't done this yet much, but I also, one of the other things I have been doing is reviewing conference papers. So you'll be asked to serve as a reviewer for conferences or journal articles, and you get to decide if people's content will be accepted for those. And of course that's important, because if nobody does peer review, obviously we can't have a peer review system. So it's a part of your service commitment. And then I've also found something that I've done a lot of this year, and that will fall when I get onto a university committee, I think, is a lot of university events, like fundraising things, graduation, and a host of other welcome to freshmen things, and I know that was fun. And all sorts of other things that I've been asked to do, and so I've done that. And when you're a junior, one of the things to know is not to say yes to everything, because everybody's overworked, and that you will be too, as soon as you say yes to everything. So another thing is to kind of think about, I think having, like now this year I just have one committee, and that's nice. I have a research group thing, which we can talk about as well. But trying to keep that part limited, and 20% of the job. And then, of course, I've also done a whole host of department events for kind of, it's service, but it's not really service. Do you have? Talked to my male colleagues about these. They said this kind of thing has never happened to me. And it's very, very interesting. I'm sure, yes, you're laughing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So there is that dimension too, that we're still, sadly, it's 2013, but we are still treated differently.
Yeah, so,
Baby while you are PhD students. You have all the support you have, because there's no good time, you know, it's really hard, when you become a assistant professor. I got my daughter when I was actually already reviewed for tenure, so it's already 5 years, so it's hard too. But I just want to add one thing, you know, just like Terrence, I'm also a very family person too. When I go to conference, I like to bring my family. Instead of I stay there longer because I'm with my family anyway. But one thing I want to emphasize too is informal communication is also very important too. I tell you why. When you apply for tenure, you need someone to write a recognition letter for you. If you know someone, it's better for them to agree to even do it. Because otherwise, you send an email, one faculty will send out about 9 requests, 9 people said no. You know, so, because they might be so busy, why they want to do it for you. So if you know someone, it's better for you to get, first of all, to say yes, they want to write a letter for you. Second one, they might write a more, because if they could be more objectively, but this might have some subjective kind of one too. So again, I think informal communication is very important. If you go to any conference, now you can meet with other fellow students, which potentially will be your colleague later somewhere. And also you can work with potential other people who might help you to work on a project, or potentially could be writing a recognition letter for you. So again, I think informal communication, keep in mind, it's always a good idea to do it too, so.
yeah, networking.
And for me anyway, one of the hardest things right now is the balance. Like the balance between the 40-40-20, which I assume doesn't go away.
No,
I
it's never
suspect
go
that
away.
This is not and it's kind of funny, just a little bit about my background. I was an adjunct. I lived in Southern California, where one of the most expensive places on earth in the US to live. So I was an adjunct. I had a job tutoring at my university, and I also had a media job. I had 3 jobs. I was teaching classes, and I actually could hardly afford to live in Southern California. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be fine when I get here, because I've had a crazy life, right? But it's crazy, and I kind of like to think about it. The difference from dissertating is that when you're dissertating, you're focused on one narrow project, right? It's your life. You live it. You breathe it. You wake up and you think about it. You might have nightmares about it, but you tell your spouse about it. Your kids might know about. You know what I mean? It's one project that infiltrates your whole being. And the most interesting thing here is trying to keep very many projects going and doing a good job at all of them, and hopefully even better than a good job. And that's the thing so far that's been, it's not overwhelmingly difficult. I still come here every day, right? But it's a big challenge because you're faced with a ton of things, and the undergrads need particular things, grad students need particular things. I find there's always someone popping in your office asking if you can do something. And then also keeping your administrative stuff, your research stuff, and just having insightful thoughts about research. So, right, you've taught 2 classes, you've come back, you've had office hours, and then it's like, okay, it's research time. And you're trying to get in that mindset to think insightfully, which I find is still something I'll get there, right? But it's getting better than it was in the first semester, but I think it's definitely a learning curve. Because you have to, one of the things I found is I asked for, my first semester I taught 4 days a week, and Friday's meeting day. So that was not conducive to research because every day I was teaching. And then I was tired, and so it's much better, this time I specifically said, can I have a 2-day teaching schedule, if it's at all possible, so that Thursdays and Tuesdays I can lock myself in my office and think about research. Because I actually find that, for me, some people can do the 45 minutes here and there, but that's not how it works. So that was something I kind of learned on the go, that I've asked for fall to also have that 2-day, because that for me is really, really important for getting thinking done. So I try to do all the administrative stuff while I teach and fill the, and then pull close the door, or mostly close the door, and do some thinking, so writing.
A couple of other people too. So we do not always say, let's accept anyone who apply the spouse test.
Actually, I had a question that's kind of unrelated to this, is in all of those different components with the teaching and the service and the research and so forth, so where do things like advising students or serving on
Funny, 'cause I
like
just thought
dissertation
about-
committees and
talk
stuff
about
go?
that.
Because I'm
It's
always
teaching.
curious, it's like if I walked up to somebody and said, oh, Terrence, would you be on my, dissertation committee? Are you gonna go, oh crap, something else to do? Or is that gonna be like something that you can, that helps you along somehow? I mean, I'm always kind of wondering, it's like, am I driving this person crazy by asking them this and they just don't want to say no, or?
It's in the merit review, like it's a piece of art, and I mean, I actually want to work with PhD students, right? That's why I came to a place that had a PhD program, because it was one of my goals. So, and then, how many? I think there are 2 of you on formal on their committees, and 1 person I might be on their committee, and so forth. And so, like, it's, it is a piece, but so far I've had to review prelims, which takes some hours, and then serve on in the
Dissertation.
Thank you. No, not the dissertation, the oral defense. That's
Oh.
what I was thinking. And then the dissertation process. So far now, the committee member thing is a less, I mean, it's work, obviously everything is. It's just like when you teach and students come and ask you to do things for them. I mean, it's the same thing. But I enjoy it because it helps me think about things. But then, you also have to realize that I can't, I'm gonna have to start saying. But it depends too, because we're a small, at least in my part, an IP, there are only 4 of us. So we need, because we have 9, I think, PhD students, that's a lot of work for each of us. So, it's work, yes, but I don't mind doing it, it's a lot.
But that's you, I mean, I would never know.
Well, I
who's-
know, but I
who's who.
can't. I don't wish to speak for a PhD student. I mean, things like follow, like, if you tell your faculty member you're going to do something, like do it. Those kinds of things, because I think that makes us it's so much easier when it's like more of a joy than when you're the other more intensive kind of
Yeah.
hand-holding.